Hi, I'm George. I'm the senior recruitment consultant here at IT Works Health. I specialize in EPR and digital transformation in both public and private healthcare. And today I'm joined by Emily Gadd. Emily, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Emily. I've worked as a project and program manager in the NHS for over 8 years now, both on digital projects and in the transformation team as well.
Fantastic. And today we're talking about what steps can be taken to revive a project that's slightly gone off track. I'm sure, a lot of people watching this may have experienced projects like this, especially working in healthcare, working in EPR, implementations, transformations. There's always some issues that do tend to arise in all of these situations. And yeah, just want to have a little conversation about, what can potentially help, or if you're coming into a project like that, what could kind of ease things and steady the ship in a slight way. So yeah, to start off, when joining a digital transformation project that is off track, what are the first steps you take in your assessment, and how do you identify the root causes of failure in a digital transformation initiative?
Yeah, absolutely. You first of all need to understand about the scope of a project and realize that being sensitive to people at the same time is really important. So no one goes into a project thinking that it's not going to work out. And if someone new is being brought in, that can be a little bit tricky. People can feel quite defensive about what's happened. So we'll talk a bit more about that later. But I think it's really important to get the initial project scope. And while you're trying to decide if it needs a redefining, what the issues are, you need to have people on board with you to do that. So you need to talk
Yeah.
to your relevant stakeholders, any SMEs that there are, and consider what the proposal might be to be able to move things forward. Are we
Mm.
able to do that? Can we do that together? And also getting your project sponsor on board with that at the sort of as soon as you've got to the assessment stage and you have a bit of a proposal, have a chat with them about it right from the word go. Don't sort of spend an awful lot of time on it until you've had a conversation, you're going in the right direction for them as well. So it's all about sort of talking to people, obviously looking at all those documents and things and trying to work out the best way forward.
Yeah, and just kind of understanding everything before anything moves forward, just having everyone's kind of ideas and
Yes,
where everyone is, no one's left behind, and you know exactly
absolutely.
what stage everyone's at. Yeah, and that
Yeah,
that
and you can't go in with any preconceived ideas either. I
mm,
think, it'd be very easy to think you know the answer, but until you're actually in there and you know what's going on, there's no way that you could possibly know the real answer, even if you've got experience on that exact project with that exact product that they're going to put
yeah.
in. You still don't know what might have happened. So going in and just talking with people is the best way.
Yeah, and especially I think maybe if you go into speak to even a few people, you get one idea, but then when you start to speak to the whole collective, it's then you're piecing in puzzles, and you can find ways from that point to I'm sure make things easier for everyone's lives. No, absolutely
Yeah,
makes sense.
definitely.
And so, what key indicators do you look for to gauge whether a project is salvageable or requires a full reset?
So scope and benefits are your two key kingpins really in any project. So you need to go back to what the scope is of the project and find out if that is still what the aim is, what you're trying to achieve, and then benefits as well. Occasionally people look at benefits at the end of a project instead of all the way through. So if you can make sure that you're actually on track to achieve those, if you're not looking at them beforehand, then that's not going to work for anybody. You need to look at what measurable benefits there are, work out any identifiable metrics for those, and then when you've got an idea of that, it does give you the information you need to know to see if the project's salvageable or not. Occasionally, of course, that isn't the case, but at least then you can put a proposal forward to explain why
Yeah,
that is the case and people can close it down. But with a bit of luck, you'll find yourself in the opposite direction and able to work on those benefits, sort of look at those goals, what you're actually going to do, and then work out how you can get there.
yeah. Is that how long do you think that is it a process you'd take a long time considering, or would you rush into that and realize, is it sooner the better, or what would you take in kind of timing wise there? Would you really want to delve deep into that?
I think it does depend on the project, but it shouldn't actually take too long. Not for that sort of initial everyone should have the scope there in the
Mm,
beginning anyway, and they should have some benefits. And even if they're not truly defined enough to be measurable, it's something to work from. So usually I would say probably in the first month that is very
mm,
achievable to do that. If it's a really complex project, then yes, it can take longer. And of course things develop as a project develops anyway, and sort of move forward. But for that initial assessment of whether it's going to be salvageable, whether, how compromised is it, I think that's very realistic to think within a month that's achievable, especially
yeah.
if you've got everyone on board with you.
Well, so yeah, and I know you touched upon it a little bit before with stakeholders, but how would you rebuild trust with stakeholders who are maybe, frustrated or disengaged due to, the project maybe not being on track?
Yeah, it's very tricky for people that have been essentially waiting for something for a long time, no matter where they are in the project, being the end users or if they're part of the project, and they can get really disillusioned about it. So it's really important to try and listen to those people, listen to your different stakeholders, and think about how they can support you and how they can support the project to get back on track. There's a lot of people can be very disillusioned, and so you've got to win them over and get them on side. And I was once told about, they're the people that you actually want to help you. You don't want people that are all on board in the first place, because actually it doesn't challenge you to do the best that you can for a project. So it's quite nice to win them over, get them aside by being with them, and then take them on that journey with you, and they're the people that will make your project successful. And sometimes you just have to remind people about the project, and going back to the benefits, but the benefits that are relevant to them in their area. So sometimes you'll have a project with lots of benefits, but the end user doesn't have the receipt of all of those benefits.
Mm,
So, okay, we might do some strategic goals that, it'll bring this, or it might bring, better data quality. Essentially, the end user isn't always that interested in it, and they
mm,
can be a bit disillusioned. So you go for the benefits that are going to work for them, you divert that to them, and you have a conversation with them about that. And then hopefully by the time you get to the stage where you're rolling it out, they're the ones who are right on board with you, and they're your champions.
yeah, absolutely. And it kind of goes back to your first point with, once you have all the idea and once you have a full scope, it may be easier to speak to them and say, look, we can now move from there. And it's a more kind of trusting conversation. You can bring them back, into sight of the end goal and the possibilities. Yeah, I can definitely see that. And
Yeah,
you know,
definitely. If you just open it up and say, help me to fix it, help me to find out where it's gone wrong. What would you like to see?
yeah,
Then sometimes you can actually get a lot better goals and outcomes from it, because you've taken the people on board with it that have been really quite disillusioned. So.
yeah. Oh, fantastic. And kind of going from stakeholders to maybe the actual teams and the people working on the projects, what actions do you take to motivate and refocus a potentially demoralized team, involved in a struggling digital project?
It's similar to your stakeholders. You need to stay very positive yourself about things, but not too positive, but to come across as sort of motivational positive at the same time. Include those people that have been on the team in your assessment, in that whole process. Bring them with you. Make them understand how important their role is, because each of those people in the team will have been brought in for a reason, and so that's really key. You can't be a project manager without your whole team around you. You can't make a successful project without everyone around you. Developers, analysts, support officers, all of those people are really, really key in being able to bring things forward. So understand about their role, understanding about them. Definitely don't let anyone have a blame culture. Don't let them feel that it's on them, that it's gone wrong. Encourage them to look forward instead. Learn from what's happened, and then don't get stuck on that. Just move forward and see how you can get to the next step with them, bringing them with you. And also, it's really important to get to know people
Mm,
that you're going to be working with. So you don't want to, I certainly wouldn't want to stay a stranger. I would do maybe some team building or some sort of face-to-face meetings, whatever seemed appropriate with those people, where you can just get to know each other a little bit on a more personal level before you start working together, or as you're starting to do that. And that can help build a rapport with people and bring them along that journey with you so that you are there as a team. And for
Yeah.
me, food is also really important.
Yeah.
So I enjoy baking and I normally bring food along with me, and that often makes people smile and happy and a little bit more receptive to what you're bringing into them.
Yeah, always helps. Always helps. Brownies and cookies. You can't really.
Definitely. Yeah.
What's your specialty? What's the
Yeah, brownie is my
brownies?
specialty.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually,
Calm
sometimes a
down.
lemon drizzle cake or something like that, but brownies are a top favorite. Chocolate makes the world go round as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely, absolutely, and yeah, I agree. Obviously, my side of as a recruiter, I speak to my contractors, people in these kind of projects and roles, and every time they're involved, and you can hear that they have big teams and they have these meetings and they're close together. You always feel a difference in conversation when they speak about projects. So I can definitely see that being hugely impactful to getting projects over the line and togetherness and working as a
Yeah,
team, because there's many parts to these projects. They're not just one thing. They're
absolutely.
endlessly complex with a lot of necessity. A lot of cogs that are very necessary to keep the clock going. Let's say. There we go. We'll go with
Yeah.
that one. But
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've never had a project that I've worked on where over, the first few weeks of getting onto that project together with a team, where I haven't developed a good rapport with the team and everyone's sort of it's just not happened. And I think that takes everybody, but it also takes an attitude of we are a team and we're going to do this together and everyone counts, rather than feeling maybe a sort of hierarchical view, which some people take. And that's not my way, and it's not the way that I've encouraged my teams before. So it's been a real joy. And the fact that even some people that have, when I've been a permanent member of staff, we've had some people come in as a deployment team, for example, and they're only sort of short-term contracts for that period of time, but we're still friends afterwards. We still meet up for drinks because that team is so strong. And I think that's lovely that people genuinely care about each other and want to work together, as well as being efficient at work, of course, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of linking in with that as well, with you're bringing in cookies, bringing in brownies, doing things for the team. What approach to shifting a company's culture could be more receptive to digital transformation? Especially after initial failures.
I think we're back to winning people over again, really, thinking about those that are resistant to change, which is very normal with projects, particularly digital projects. It can be quite hard for, again, the end users particularly to take that on board. So think about the individual changes you're making and realise that people are resistant to change itself rather than individual changes. And then just bringing people along on the journey that matches that culture that you're wanting them to have. So giving them choices if it's possible, making them feel included, sort of if there's choices within a layout of something, or if you're giving them pieces of equipment, does it have different colors maybe, or something that can give them a little bit of inclusion, make them feel that they have been included in that. And also just sort of being there, being positive, being supportive, making them feel that they're along that journey with you, but you're giving them smiles, but also you can sympathize with them and realize that, yeah, change is hard. Absolutely. It is difficult. Sometimes we need to realize that we have to do it whether we want to or not, acknowledge it, and then move on. And that's where my brower brownies come in. So on a go live day, it's really important to take brownies or cookies or anything food with you to give to people, because then you're giving them something in return, something that they actually want, rather than this new system that you're bringing in, which often they're a little bit resistant to. So
Yeah, absolutely.
and I find people do try to start to trust me with these types of projects. I've sort of been known within the trust that I've worked at as someone who cared about people individually, enjoyed working with people, learning about people, and hopefully being kind to people as well. That's what you get known for, rather than from a project level. Obviously, from a director sort of perspective, strategic perspective, they want you to be achieving your outcomes and getting your benefits. But from a people perspective, they just want someone to be kind to them and
Yeah.
to bring them something that's what will help them rather than working against them, really. So
Yeah.
yeah, and that's a bit about culture, because culture is all about people.
Absolutely. I know when you talk about little things and little changes that sometimes don't feel so, relevant, or it shouldn't really feel like it makes a big impact. And even small things working here, you get a new coffee machine, or you get a new, I don't know, we get a new anything in the office, and no matter how big or small it is, and it does kind of warm you up, and it makes the place feel more at home, and you feel more connected to it, and it kind of keeps that enthusiasm going. So yeah, I can absolutely see that as well.
Yeah,
And
definitely. But there's also things you can do for that. So some people might be resistant to a new coffee machine because
mm,
they really liked the old style of coffee, or they knew how to work it and they don't know how to work the other one. So you look at ways that you can do that. Even something as simple as a coffee machine, you could just put a little sign next to it that says, press button 1 to do this, load coffee here, whatever it is, to be able to do that. And you just make it as straightforward as possible, and then get people to hopefully enjoy the coffee at the end of it. Just with some sort of simple step-by-step guides. There's so many different ways that you can do things like that, encourage people. And I think one of the things people are afraid of it most is probably looking stupid, especially with digital, with technology things. And that includes things like a coffee machine, or what button do I press? Do I have to put money in somewhere? Do I have to, you don't want to look stupid in front of anybody else. No one likes the idea of that. So
mm.
let's just try and bring people along with that and make them make them feel less stupid and able to use whatever you're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think really interesting conversation. It touches on a lot of parts. Obviously, on my side, being in the crew, you don't really see these projects as in depth as yourself, and it is really interesting to see how, yeah, impressive, important it is to be a part of a team, important that communications there. As we said at the start, these projects are always going to have their issues. It's always going to be something popping its head, and timings are going to be always hard. So,
Oh, always,
um,
yeah.
all the small things that you can make lives easier with, I think you've mentioned, will always make things, yeah, a lot smoother and easier, and as you said, steadier ship potentially as well. But no, I really appreciate you taking the time with me. It was a great conversation, and like I say, really interesting. I was very excited for this one, so I
Yeah,
really
thank
appreciate it,
you.
and thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, George.